Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Crate Expectations. I'm here with my co host, Coughing Sarah. How are you today?
Still,
Sarah with a cough,
still coughing, apparently. Oh,
apparently. Well, at least it's not cough in, um,
oh, where
wow.
did like like a coffin that you would rest in and be buried in?
I mean, maybe what I meant was like a redneck kind of way of saying coughing.
Oh, okay.
Like, oh man, she won't quit coughing.
And I immediately went to being dead.
That's actually what I meant was being dead.
Fair.
I was just trying to cover my tracks, and
Uh,
then you kind of bought it. And I was like, I don't know if I wanted to buy it actually. So, anyways, not enough about coffins and coughing
mhm.
and all of that. We have stuff to talk about Galaxy of Heroes. I
Yeah,
think, right? What are we talking about today,
a
Sarah?
little bit. So I feel like most of us knew this set 7 was coming for Datacrons
No, oh
since
wow,
since Conquest is next week.
I'll have to look at that.
So they did release all of the set 7 info. And that's kind of pretty much all they've done this week since last week's big announcement. So
Yeah, let us get a little bit settled. Have you ever thought
Mhm.
about making a video on how to most efficiently farm datacrons in Conquest? I feel like that would be, even though you don't love
Mm,
datacrons, seems like it would be right down your alley.
I haven't, but I feel like I get a good chunk of Datacrons for
Oh,
how I play the game, I think, or how I play Conquest,
sure.
and not loving Datacrons either.
Well, for how much you dislike them, yeah, I feel like you do get a lot of them. And Professor X, every once in a while, I have to push you a little bit. I'm like, I'm gonna just go ahead and attack a couple extra times.
Yeah.
If I want more datacrons, I have to work for it, which is totally reasonable on your end.
Yeah. Professor X is also in a weird spot too because I feel like a lot of the um sectors for that account, I'm like, I don't know if this will work properly on the Datacron node. Like we might have to jerry rig something.
Yeah, you usually come up with something really awesome though. And I'll tell you what though. So for those of you who don't know, Sarah runs my alternate account. For the most part, all of it. I do the GAC stuff, and I
Hmm.
do. I do a few other things, but for the most part, so you do all of the conquest, which is amazing and awesome, and super appreciate it, of course. And I feel like there's I don't know, like you do come up with a lot of really good ideas for being able to farm those things and beat a lot of those nodes. And the thing that I've been missing the most, however, is because you're expecting to be gone for
Right.
not maybe not this conquest but the one after, or at least
Right.
for a big part of it or whatever. I can't reasonably expect you to be doing it for me
Hmm.
at that point. You were buying all the shards for Trench, and
I know.
I can't buy all the goodies that I normally want from Conquest Store.
If it makes you feel any better, I did that on my own account too because I was like, there's no way. Like I will probably be getting gold crate in that last series for Trench.
Right.
And it just made me so sad because I do the same thing. I like to buy the relic materials and stuff, signal data, whatever it is that I'm buying.
Right. Yeah, and no worries, but that did kind of make me laugh. So, in like a really painful way. So,
Yeah.
all right. So I don't know we're a week away from the road ahead now. We had our
Mm-hmm.
kind of like we were kind of like the first people to be able to react to the road ahead in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like it came out on a Tuesday, and then we recorded later that Tuesday. Do you have any
Mm-hmm.
further deeper thoughts about the road ahead? Like, is there anything you're more excited about now, or more worried about, more of anything?
I wouldn't say I'm more worried. Um, I still have like all the same questions. And like that, I think that was the biggest thing was maybe I was being misinterpreted. I don't think it's a bad road ahead. I never thought it was a bad road ahead. I just thought it left room for questions. Oh, actually, there is something that, and this isn't even necessarily about the road ahead. This is something that I think I noticed probably 2 or 3 days after it came out.
Hmm.
Um, they seem to be giving us more info, and I relate this back to like the new territory battle coming and Jabba being announced, and now this new raid and everything. They seem to be giving us more information, not necessarily more information, but the information in bits more staggered like in time throughout the year instead of being like, hey, this is coming in 6 weeks. They tell us 3 or 4 months ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
which makes sense why I would necessarily or somebody else would have questions about like how's the raid structure for rewards going to look and like all of these things that they haven't answered yet because they're giving us the information but they haven't finished developing it necessarily, so they can't answer that. And that was something I just like realized probably 2 or 3 days after it came out, which I think I like the idea of them saying, hey, this is coming, because it really places a lot of emphasis on paying attention to what they're saying that's coming so that you can focus what you want to do with your roster for the year or for however many months in advance.
It's an interesting thing that we're kind of in this position where, what do you want to do with your roster this year?
Right.
Like we've been playing so long that you're like, yeah, I spent like this last year I just focused on mods, and now I mean that obviously that's not it, just it, but you know, like you can kind of like structure it that way because the game has had such good longevity, and frankly, like I agree. I love that they're iterating the information to us. You know, like they're
Mhm.
giving us just little snippets here and there, and letting us just kind of digest it a little bit. Just help us to wrap our minds around this big change. Because people who love the current raid system, which I don't know how many people do, but my guess is there are a few, like that you want to give them the biggest chance to be able to like be okay with
Right.
the changes.
And like that was something that I was thinking about because they were saying in it that they're going to give us more information in the next road ahead in April. And I was like, okay, so we're not going to see this raid before April, which means we'll probably see it at the earliest in May, maybe. Like that's a good chunk of time to kind of sit on this information, let them develop it. And for people like you said that
Right.
like the structure right now to wrap their heads around it changing.
Right, or say their goodbyes if this is like a quitting offense. And I don't mean that in any kind of callous, just like see you later, but I mean seriously, some people are just like, all right, I feel like when like Datacrons came out, people are like, all right, I'm gonna quit in the next, however
Right.
many weeks, because pretty soon it's gonna be overrun with Datacrons, and I don't want that, and I'm gonna say my goodbyes and leave. And you can't really blame people for, if it's a quitting offense, it's a quitting offense. Like if it's not fun, don't do it.
Right.
Like I don't blame you for that. I blame people for being whiners earlier than they should be or something, but that's a different story. So no, I think you and I, people are like, man, you guys were so negative last episode, and I guess I didn't feel like I was even being that negative. You had a lot of questions about it. And I thought that there was some cool stuff, but I could also see a lot of, potentially problematic things.
Hmm.
I do think that this new the raid ahead, is gonna end up, I don't know. This is so much information to digest,
Yeah.
but I'm excited for the new characters, for potentially for the raid. I hope that they're generous with the rewards.
Yeah. I'm curious about the rewards. I mean, I digest information through asking questions. Like that's how my brain works. So, and it was a lot of information to digest. I am hoping that with the characters, because we know that we're getting another Tuscan at some point,
Hmm.
and then like the Cal Kestis stuff and all that. I'm hoping that it is m moderately spaced out. I feel like it was a lot to kind of throw at us in the first week or so of February. Um, Again, like I don't know what they're thinking of in terms of timing, but we did already get one of the Tuscans, so it's a matter of when do we get that next one. You
Man,
want them for the raid, and if that's going to happen in May.
well, I'll be honest. It felt like when they announced it, I was like, oh man, they're gonna have to release a character every week.
That's
I,
what
I
I was
was
thinking.
I just figured but that's just me putting a certain level of immediacy to it that, like, as you were
Hmm.
just saying, CG isn't necessarily feeling that way. They're just like, all right, like the raids are gonna come out at some point. Cal Kestis gonna be released at some point. Like they know their time frames. At least
Hmm.
they know their rough time frames at the very least. And but otherwise we don't know them. And the Tuscans, you would think that they'd be released pretty close. Like, if it's not going to be this week, it'll have to be like next
Next.
week ish. It's my guess because, uh, you know, they're going to want, the free to play. I don't know. I don't want to ascribe certain conditions or aspirations to what CG is doing because we're terrible at guessing that. As a community, we've always been horrible at guessing that. But um, other than they want to make money, which is obvious, I guess,
Hmm.
and they want to troll us about Red 5. But
Also, also that.
otherwise, I think we don't really know exactly what their goal is, but like the Tuscans, my guess is that they really want the new raid thing to be well received.
Hmm.
So maybe they get us all the Tuscans a little earlier than like they make them more free to play available
Hmm.
for when they launch the raid. So they'll give the whale guilds the advantage for a while, but my guess is that free to play won't be that far behind.
Yeah. And I think I could see like so we get the second Tuscan this week or next week. Um, Especially if the raid is gonna if we get more information in April, maybe we see it in May, like May or June. Um, for Cal Kestis, if I remember, so I think it was last week, maybe it was this week, second sister went accelerated, which means she's been
Hmm.
in game for a year.
Was it
Um,
second or ninth?
Second. Ninth is the next one to be accelerated.
Okay, that's fine.
Um, I think it was last week that she went accelerated. But
It's all numbers to me.
either way, they had the Inquisitors. So they started obviously last year, give or roughly last year with Second Sister, and then the Grand Inquisitor event was at the end of June. So I wonder if we would see a similar timeline for Cal Kestis because they could start releasing those in the next couple of weeks and still make his event for sometime in June or July.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious. I'm just. It seems like sometime this year they're gonna give us a new Galactic Legend.
Yeah, I
It
agree.
seems it seems like at some point this year we'll probably get Relic 10. I know you hate that idea. We don't need to discuss it further, but it's. I mean, it seems like what else are they gonna do with the new raid? Like, what's gonna be the big awesome reward? So I just said we don't have to discuss it. Then I discussed it, uh, but we have. I feel like we're getting a new GL. I feel like we're getting Relic 10.
Hmm.
And I just wonder what else. Like, are we gonna get a new game mode? I feel like
Oh,
you know.
another one?
Well, okay. So Solo and I were talking about it a lot on our podcast yesterday, and he thinks that maybe they're just gonna scrap Territory Wars, or maybe not scrap it, but add another I don't know, PvP guild event. Which I think that if they do that, they'd have to scrap Territory Wars. But I don't know. Like Territory Wars to me has I feel like it's on the chopping block anyways on some levels. Like it's just like I don't know about you. I feel like it's kind of boring, Like people I don't I'll talk about it for a minute. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on like replacing territory wars? What do you think?
Um, I could see it being the thing that is kind of like maybe the least engaged with in terms of the majority of guilds, because you obviously have like the top high end competitive guilds that are
Mm-hmm.
going to engage with territory war like crazy.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And then there are several guilds staggered throughout like the GP brackets that are territory war competitive that would
Right.
engage with it as well,
That take
because
it super seriously.
yeah, you're going to find that type of a player across the board.
Absolutely.
Um,
And nothing wrong with that
no,
for the record.
no, not at all. I just feel like, and this could be because of the amount that or the type of people that are in my guild and the type of people I interact with in the community and stuff. I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily fall into that category. So I could see it being revamped or scrapped or something like that. But my immediate thought is no matter what you were to scrap it into, you would have to move the rewards that are in territory war to that event.
Sure.
Um,
Well, and you'd have to do something about the Omicrons. Like you have to make the
yes.
Omicrons still valuable, you know,
Hmm.
or at least I mean, I feel like a refund of Omicrons would be a fiasco.
Oh my gosh, that would be a nightmare.
Well, especially it's like, well, I didn't gear Juhani because she's good. Like, if you're
Right.
gonna refund my Juhani Omicron, refund me her gear too. You know,
Right,
because I don't.
exactly. Oh, I didn't even think about the Omicrons. That would be a huge wrench. So then they might not scrap it because of that reason.
Well, you got to think though. I mean, so I just think that they could make it more dynamic, more interesting, more interesting. Like it's just to me, it's just like I don't know what I said in the podcast was what it feels like to me right now. It's just so boring because it feels like. Especially because once they expanded it and it's like 50 squads per zone or
Yeah.
whatever, it feels like the Revolutionary War,
Hmm.
honestly. Or you know, I guess you're from Canada, you don't necessarily, but it's like the red coats and the you
Hmm.
know everyone's just like lining up, and one side is like fire, and the other side's like fire, and everyone's just lined up and just get killed, you know,
Yeah.
and. You know, and it's just no one's personal contributions are even noted. I'm like, hey guys, I just killed like 4 Jedi Master Kenobis, and and everyone's like, yeah, shut up, dude. Like that's not even 10% of that is one zone.
Right.
Like who even cares? Like four doesn't matter. Like what do you, you know? It's like for someone in the on the lines, they're like, did you see that? I shot like 4 redcoats. They're like, okay,
Okay.
just be happy you're alive.
There's another 8 walls of them to come.
Yeah, it just like it's just so impersonal and so boring. Like it would be way more epic if you could actually split it into a little bit more of a dynamic thing where it's like, hey, your squad, you're like your group of 5 have to go take this you know node or something like that.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know what they would do with it. I have been curious if they will ever revamp Galactic War, because Galactic War is just totally, unless you're brand new, like there's nothing to it.
I
Um,
mean, at least it's simmable.
oh
That's
yeah,
what
totally.
they need to be. They need to make territory war simmable.
They need to make a lot of things simmable. Uh, um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I feel like getting territory battles and then a new raid and then on top of that another new game mode in within a year would be a lot.
Well, they would really need to. I mean, they need to get rid of something.
Yeah, like that would
Well,
be
we say that.
a lot, and that would be a lot of time in game.
Have you ever wondered if they are ever going to add vehicles to this game?
I don't think they will. And the only reason why I don't think they will is because I think it would fall into the same sort of, I don't want to say like problem area, but I think it would have the same challenges that ships are having, where there isn't necessarily a ton of engagement for them.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's kind of a shame in some way. Like, I mean, the reason I loved Star Wars to begin with was all of the ships and stuff. I didn't care as much about lightsabers. Like, I cared, but you know, when I was a kid, the thing that I watched the most, though, the by far the thing I anticipated the most were the space battles.
Right. Which makes
You
sense.
know, Yeah, I mean it's Star Wars. It's cool, but then like the vehicles are pretty cool too, like the walkers and the.
Hmm.
I'd,
Um,
I'd be down.
it would be interesting. I mean, they're they're in game with those Ewok challenge things that we have to do.
Yeah. What if you could be the guy who controlled the ATST and you just got to kill the Ewoks?
Uh, I just don't know what they would do with them in general, other than give it the sort of same treatment that they gave ships.
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, I don't know how they'd implement it. Okay, so I'm gonna like just backpedal just a tiny bit. Like, okay,
Okay.
so I love the new raid format. Actually, I don't necessarily love raids. I'm gonna try to
Hmm.
embrace it as much as I can. And as a content creator, I'll certainly be trying to make some videos or at least doing some streams with it and all that. But I don't love it. But I think the new format is worlds ahead of better than what the old raid format
Hmm.
was. Like at least right now, it seems like it's better designed, like on a lot of different levels. And I have to say, kudos to CG for coming up with something. I was like, oh, this sounds more reasonable. Like you guys can't keep up with the meta and trying to account for 250 characters and their weird interactions against your stuff. Like, I get it, but this is a good way to
Right.
make it kind of iconic, make people help people engage, make them engage, whatever. Um, the so I don't know if you agree with that.
I actually do, and I think also it is a really easy way for them to get around like the cheese issues that you've been having,
Hmm.
um, without having to necessarily like completely revamp kits entirely and break things or whatever. So like I was saying to Pico on H&N last week, like, I would be shocked if we ever in a new raid saw First Order and Night Sisters as two factions that were allowed. Like, I was like, there's no way they're gonna let you do some kind of Kylo zombie cheese. Like,
Yeah,
uh, you
yeah, they
know.
hate it.
So I could. This is a really easy way for them to just be like, nope, this can't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably in the cards. I think that yeah, I think that's probably like it's nice that they're doing that. I do think. Okay, so here's the thing. I think that the raid format is good for what raids are. I don't play this game for raids,
Right.
but it gives me a little bit of hope that they're going to be able to design something that could maybe upgrade Territory Wars to be something more dynamic, or maybe even GAC. Like,
Hmm.
how long have we been saying we need a new board for GAC?
Right. Instead of just the four zones.
Well, how dumb is it that the forums say 5v5 plus ships every time? Like on
Right.
the calendar, 5v5 plus ships, 3v3 plus ships. Like, what if they one day just remove the plus ships? It's
Hmm. And it was just squads.
Yeah. What if they had squads in the back zone? People were like, "Whoa, I
I
didn't."
always thought it would be kind of cool to do a GAC that was like instead of the grid, slices, so that you can't see anything other than what's directly in front of you.
So it's like you clear one zone to get to the next zone, and then you clear that
Right.
zone to get to the next one.
Right, exactly. So you can't clear one zone and then look at, you know, eight different teams or whatever and figure out what you're doing. You're only seeing what's ahead of you.
Yeah, I mean, I would try so many new boards. I don't know. I have all these ideas about what they could do, and I guess at the end of the day, like what's really interesting to me is I find like after being so long, I felt so disgruntled about this game, and at least on some levels, and
Mhm.
CG being frustrating, and there's still definitely issues, still absolutely things that need to be addressed. I do find myself feeling like much more positive about this game and where it's at lately.
Yeah, I don't think it's in a bad spot. I think also what's happening is we're seeing a lot of stuff coming out of all that back end work that they did. I think it was
Yeah.
like almost 2 years ago now, where they were switching over their their back end, whatever
Yeah.
coding, whatever
Try,
platform thing.
trying to, yeah, like make the spaghetti code be a little better somehow,
Yeah.
more accessible to them.
And I think now we're seeing how that is coming into play because they're able to turn around new Galactic Legends, Conquest, Territory Battle, a new raid, a whole new raid system in terms of how you would progress through it. Like they're going
Right.
to be able to do all of these things. Um, so I don't think it's in a bad spot at all.
No, which I mean, I guess it's such a weird thing because I felt last year, you know, there was so many things. I was just like, man, I just keep feeling beat down, and there's still issues. Like people tell me, some people, it was so interesting. There's so many people in my comments who are like, man, I agree. There's too because I've been talking about how we have too much time that we have to spend in game, and
Yes.
so some people say you're crazy, man. How do you feel that way? Like it's just because you have two accounts. Like they just dismiss my things because it's, and I'm
Right.
like, well, I don't like you play one of my accounts for the most part. Like you and I share that load.
Yeah.
You know, and you do a lot of the heavy lifting, and but and half the other people are like, yeah, man, it's too much time spent in the game. It's a very interesting thing. I did not expect as many people to jump down and say like, hey, we need more stuff. I'm bored with how much stuff we have right now. How little stuff.
I think because it's so scheduled now with their 4 week rotation or for their 4 week schedule of how things work,
Right.
it doesn't really feel like there's downtime, especially if you are in a guild that's doing Empire territory battles, because you don't really get an off week anymore, right? Like that was
Right.
the great thing about Dark Side Geo was we were like, all right, put your feet up and enjoy the break this week, so to speak. Because Dark Side Geo always fell when Conquest wasn't happening. So you only had um Grand Arena really to worry about.
Yeah.
And you just kind of relaxed.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, and now
There
you
it
don't
was.
get that.
Nope. And we spend more time doing territory battles when, even in the times that we would have. So, all right, we got some trigger photos here. Well, a
Oh.
trigger photo. I guess we'll do it from the whoa, we're in the game screen. Okay, so this one is so it doesn't have Java in it, but it's a bunch of well, I guess we only have one female Galactic Legend.
We do.
And it's not. I don't know that this is probably just like they ran out of gear before they could gear her. Like I doubt that this was actually like a statement of like I don't want any like girl Grand Inquisitors Galactic Legends. But yeah, so someone posted this as a trigger, and it's kind of funny, but I was like, oh, what we need is someone to make use that meme of I don't even want to necessarily describe it, but what I am going to do is very briefly show that meme, because someone
That's
actually did do it.
that's somebody made.
Yeah, I mean, on my behest, I might add. It made me laugh out loud when I saw it, though. So, yeah. All right, that's
Uh
enough. But
uh
yeah,
I do think you're right in that they probably ran out of gear. It just is a conveniently timed screenshot, I guess, or something of the like.
well, what's interesting that I just noticed, in fact, is this isn't someone looking at someone else's roster. This is the person who owns it because you have the little plus signs in the gear slots.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. So it's their own.
Yeah, so that they just like took a picture. They're like, "Oh, this will make create expectations," and apparently it did. So congratulations for making it to create expectations fame. And with that, we're going to Sarah's channel to talk about all the awesome stuff, including some of the Datacron set 7. Like one of the characters that is going to be totally bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
So, video description, find the link to Sarah's channel, or there should be some button underneath us somewhere that you can just click on if you made it this far. So, we'll see you over there.